Hey everyone, I'm Woman Walking Away and this is my YouTube channel. My name's Kathleen and I wanted to do a really quick follow-up on the video that I just posted yesterday because I got a comment from Sheena Armstrong that so resonated with me and I think is so important. So she said in the comments of the previous video that another thing to do when someone discloses to you, so when someone reveals to you that they are a survivor or a victim of sexual assault or abuse or another traumatic event, something that you can do as a listener is to disclose to them. So I think she mentioned it's something you can do first. So if you know that it's coming, like for example, like if you're doing counseling work or something like that, or if you're a peer mentor, then you sort of know that something might be coming because there's telltale signs, or you may know more about them because say you've read their intake notes or something like that. So something that can immediately build confidence in your connection is to talk a little bit about what you've experienced that makes you relatable to them. But I also want to add that this is sort of like some next level communication stuff because we can really tread that line of talking about ourselves in a time that's meant for the other person to talk about themselves. So I see this as sort of like a recurring meme on Tumblr when, someone will say, my friend shared something with me and then I spent the next half an hour talking about my experiences, and I was trying to commiserate and trying to relate to them, but the reality is it ended up looking like I was changing the topic to talk about myself. So we don't want that to happen, right? Because being disclosed to, having someone share that with you is an honor. It's a gift, and we need to give it the attention that it's due. So that's my only caveat on this advice. I think it's wonderful advice. I do it all the time. For example, like at the shelter, if someone comes in and say they had disclosed to another staff just a small part of their story, for an example, of they experienced childhood sexual abuse, I might, before delving into a more in-depth conversation with them, say, I know that as someone who's been through childhood sexual abuse, I come up against this particular issue all the time. And that issue could be having to defend your boundaries, having a hard time with boundaries, having a hard time with self-care, having a hard time speaking your truth, things like that. So if I know that they have an issue with speaking up, and I know that they've experienced child sexual abuse, like that's a perfect opportunity for me to say, I had this in my past. I also sometimes struggle with this, and here's how I deal with it. And they can do whatever they want with that information after you've provided it to them. But the idea that you have that foundation in common can really ground that relationship. I also find that as someone who went through some really, really dark and ugly times, to who now has like a really strong social support network, who has a good job and a career path, who has hobbies that I love and things that I'm good at, I feel like I can actually legitimately model what it looks like when we put self-care into practice, when we put our healing journey and our storytelling into practice. So I would say like disclosing in turn is a gift also, because all disclosures are, it's a tricky one to navigate because like I said, you want to make sure that the focus stays on them. You want to make sure that you're not making them do emotional labor for you in that moment. It's not about your trauma or your experience in that moment. The point of disclosure in that situation is to just make them feel more comfortable with what they are trying to tell you. So if you disclose and then it ends up to them feeling like, oh, now I have to comfort them, then something in the delivery of that has gone a little awry. So in order to avoid that, I would just say, I would frame it in a way that makes it obvious that although you still have struggles, you're good now, and your experiences have made you stronger. I shouldn't say you're good now, like you're all good, but more, you're not in the thick of it anymore. You're not in the daily battle. So seeing how far you've come can help them sort of envision something for themselves. But yeah, I would just caution against the idea of, now I'm going to tell you about me and then you tell me about you. It's got to be more like, listen, I see where you're coming from. I experienced something like that too, and I know how hard it is. Or something that I've been trying a lot more lately is, because I've been challenged on, you don't know what I'm going through, nobody knows what I'm going through, which is true. Like, I could have everything in common with a person, our stories could align eerily, and yet I don't know how they as a person internalized or responded to these situations. So I may instead say something like, even though I experienced something really similar to what you're talking about, I can't imagine what that was like for you. Can you tell me more about it? Right? Because the intention is to offer a safe space for further sharing. What we don't want is for someone to share and then feel like they've burdened us, or feel like they've overshared, or feel like now they have to deal with the shame of saying it out loud, or feel like now I have information about them that makes them vulnerable. Right? These are all fears that we have before we disclose. So we want to, like, in somehow one fell swoop, address all of those concerns. So that's a tricky one to navigate, but I love it. I find it so effective. I think it's really kind to tell a little bit of your story when you're encouraging someone to tell a bit of theirs. And the truth is, if you go in like an open book, I had someone recently say, I can share certain parts of my story, but this part I've never shared before. So if you can kind of go around yourself as an open book about all of your experiences, you're showing people that there is no need to have a compartment of shame that you hold on to because it's that one thing that's just too much. For some people, they may be open about their abuser, but not their sexuality. Or maybe they're open about their sexuality, but not their addiction. Or maybe they're open about their addiction, but not their mental health issues, right? Like, there's so many components. Women are so layered. And the amazing thing, I want to like finish that thought, because sometimes I jump off into other thoughts. So we want women to be able to have a holistic imaging of themselves, which means that if we model and say, so here's my issues, here's what I struggle with, and lay them on the line, like, I think not just to the one person, but in our lives, then we exude this sort of this vulnerability, but there's also like a real strength in that, like that sharing of, here are the things that I've been through, here's the way that they've impacted me, and here's what I'm still working on. Like, that is such a healing thing to witness when you're talking to someone who has never had that before, who could never even fathom that for themselves. So a fun thing about having gone through so many of the different things that I've gone through is that I can relate to almost every woman to some degree, right? Like, I have experienced child sexual abuse and rape, stranger rape, and rape in a marriage. So I run the gamut in that way. So like none of the, but in terms of extremity, like, I may not have experienced a lot of the things that some women have, so I say that, I'll say my situation was different, but I know a little bit about what you're going through, and I just want you to know, I know how hard it is to share, and I think that you're really brave for doing so. Like, how validating is that? And how much did I need to hear that in all the times where I told my story and people were like, ah! So, yeah, so I've experienced those types of things, and I also have experience with with things like addiction and disordered eating and mental health issues. So you can find the connection anywhere with anyone if you decide that it's important. So that's just my little jump off from Sheena's comment, which I really enjoyed, and I love getting the comments, just so you know, like, reading them makes my day. A lot of them, if they're really nice, I'll screenshot them and look at them later and be like, oh. I love this new way of just kind of doing videos wherever rather than the heavily edited ones, which I was doing previously, because I'm so lazy. It's so much work, and I guess, like, I used to lose my train of thought a lot, and I think that I still do, but I don't notice it in the same way as I used to. So maybe I'm getting better, or maybe I'm stopping caring. Either way, I think that that's a win. So, subscribe to my channel if you want more conversations on just fun stuff, self-care, boundaries, assertiveness. I'm going to do a lot more of that stuff. Communication, it's so primary, radical feminism, backpacking, whatever I want to talk about. I like a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so definitely like this, because that is very important for some reason. You can also check out some of my photos and stuff on Instagram at Woman Walking Away, and my tweets at Woman Walks Away. And I hope to see you with another video very soon, but it's very cool to have two so quickly close together. I bet that's going to feel good. Okay, I hope you have a great day.